this is a job that has changed a lot in like 5 years. Like we were kind of seeing this a little bit previously. You know them more as like the DPPs, the Director of Player Personnels. They were paid not very much, like usually like $60,000 to $100,000 on most staffs. Some, if you had a long time guy, might be making a little bit more, but they were generally younger guys who worked a lot in scouting. But with the portal, with NIL, and how much difficult it is to manage a roster, it's sort of changed. Dane, when players are acting with a GM at the NFL level, what does that kind of look like from your perspective?
Yeah, so the GMs in the NFL, when you look at the hierarchy, it's like ownership, general manager, head coach. And the main job of the general manager is just to construct the team. You take the coach, you take the players, you find a coach that fits the talent, a talent that fits the coach, and you bring it all together, and then they directly respond to the ownership of the team. So I'm interested to see like if that translates to college, because I'm not sure that college GMs are going to have the same type of control and the same type of power as an NFL GM. But like when I was in Buffalo, we had a great general manager. He's still there, Brandon Bean, and he just was a phenomenal guy when it came to putting all the pieces of the puzzle together. I mean, obviously for him, it was easy because you already have a great head coach, you already have great ownership, you have a great quarterback in Josh Allen, and then it's like finding the supplemental pieces around it to construct a championship caliber football team. And clearly they've done that because they're going to be playing for the AFC championship game this Sunday. But, it's all about constructing the team and being the glue that essentially holds it together. Like I said, it'll be interesting to see how that fares in college. But when you look at the NFL hierarchy, again, it's just ownership and then it's the GM. And it's really weird because you think somebody else that's not the owner has more say-so and has more leeway when it comes to decision making than the head coach. But I can't imagine that being the same at the college level.
Yeah, at the college level, obviously the head coach is the most powerful person on a lot of campuses, certainly in the program. But you have a GM that is rising up in importance. Chris, what does that mean for how these programs are going to operate moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, the headline here for me on the Chad Bowden news is getting $1 million a year. That is now up to assistant coach or more territory, and it's been a very quick rise. We saw Courtney Morgan last year, Washington to Alabama, and everything he did there. That is becoming this thing. Like Damien said, it's not the GM is under the head coach. The GM is just putting everything together for the head coach to essentially make the decision. Now that when the portal started, we had a lot of teams we have one guy who does high school stuff, we have one guy who does portal stuff. Now it's kind of all in the same organization with somebody overall of it. The revenue sharing on top of that. You've got athletic departments and programs hiring cap managers, which essentially is what I think a lot of these GM jobs are going to be. Crunching the numbers, seeing what fits, roster limits, all that stuff. The head coach does not have time to handle all of this. They need somebody to put it all together in an easily digestible package to present to the coach to ultimately make the decisions. That's what's happening here. And you're going to see that more and more over the next year as this revenue sharing becomes a thing, because suddenly schools themselves have $13, $14 million per football team themselves to manage. And so that is why that is going to be such a big thing now moving forward. Basketball has it too. Isn't that what Woj is for St. Bonaventure's basketball?
Nice. Yes.
Yeah, Adrian Wojnarowski is that. Syracuse has one. Like basketball, the top basketball programs are doing it too. So this is just becoming the norm. It's a little bit different than pros in terms of who they report to, but the job is essentially the same.
I'm curious what this means for USC. Obviously last year, hires Danton Lynn, had a great season, but the offense kind of cratered around Miller Moss. Receivers didn't have a great year. Zachariah Branch is gone. I mentioned Kyron Hudson's gone. They got to figure that out. Lincoln's status is, boy wonder play caller, maybe wobbling like a little bit as a quarterback developer. We'll see. He has enough of a background. This is the first year that it was really not very good. But I'm curious what that means for how they put together a roster. I think you look at USC, was kind of peaking for a little bit. When you look at their talent, and especially this year, I didn't see a lot. Offensive line has been an issue. And I'm curious if they want to redo how they scout. Our USC writer, Antonio Morales, has said that Lincoln has more support than any USC coach has ever had. What does that look with how you allocate those resources and figure that out? That's for the GM to figure out. Like you mentioned, Chris, you have a collective. We'll see what that looks like over the top of the rev share, where it should be between 12 and 14 million. I think having somebody whose job it is to suss that out versus like the head coach is just like, every 5-star that gets in my office, we need to get this guy. Figuring out what you're going to use your money on versus using 85 scholarships on is a much more complicated arithmetic problem. And I think that's for the GM to solve, and you got to figure that out. What do you make for what this means for USC big picture, Chris?
My question is, for USC, you're still losing players to the portal. That's a concern. You're losing Pregnon, the offensive lineman, to Oregon. You're losing the brothers who went to Georgia. You've got all this money that's being spent on staff. Danton Lynn, the defense coordinator, $1 million GM. It kind of ties back into Ohio State too, but make sure you have enough money for the players. Because that's ultimately what is determining who wins and loses.